Hi, I'm Kristen, the Queen of Nostalgia, and today I want to share with you the top 6 things that I have learned since starting my crochet journey. I'm relatively new to crochet. I've only been crocheting since about Christmas time of 2024, so it's been about a year and like maybe 4 months, 5 months, so not quite a year and a half yet. But in that time, I've learned a lot. One of my favorite things is that crocheting is so therapeutic. And what I mean by that is that it's relaxing. I am very squirrel brained, so having something for my hands to do has just been a godsend. It helps me kind of relax, get some of my nervous energy out, and at the same time, I'm making something beautiful and pretty and usable. So I don't feel like, I guess I don't feel guilty for taking that time for me because I'm making something. And not that you have to always be productive every single second of the time, but that's always how I feel, right? So this way with crocheting, I'm able to feel productive at the same time doing something that is for me and not feel selfish about it. When learning to crochet, I suggest using a thicker yarn. My sister taught me how to crochet. I talk about her a lot, but she was such a good teacher. And I think one of the best things that we did was I learned how to use on a worsted weight and then actually switched up to a thicker weight, like a bulkier yarn, probably like a weight of 5. And the reason that helped me so much was that I was able to see the stitches and see where the holes were and like a zoomed in version of crocheting. So that's my suggestion. Start with a fat yarn. So this yarn right here, this is Lion Brand's Cover Story Lazy Days, right? It's nice and fat. The only tricky thing is it's kind of stretchy. So if you are using it, like say you're learning how to use, trying out some fat yarn first, the only tricky thing is that it might goof up you learning your tension because it is so stretchy, right? So you might be tempted to like really pull and then make it really tight and weird. So what I would suggest, this is great for like showing someone how to crochet. But what I suggest for the actual using, this is like a super bulky. I think this is also probably Lion Brand. I'll move this guy out of the way. So when you're doing a project or learning even just how to do your stitches, right? So you make your slip knot there, but see how it's so big, you don't have to worry about like the little bitty yarn, like trying to see where's the hole, you know what I'm saying? It's so big, it's very tactile. You can still see your stitches, your holes, right? So that's just my suggestion. If you are starting off or having trouble or are frustrated, use a chunky yarn, right? Follow a tutorial or just practice making some stitches. That's what I did a lot of times. I would just like practice the stitches, make little swatches, make a coaster, right? Once you kind of get into it a little bit. Was that a single? I usually do a half double foundation stitch after my chain. But anyway, look at, you can really pull it apart. Yarn is forgiving, very stretchy, but this way you can see, right? You can see what you got going on in there. And the hook is nice and big because it's a bigger yarn, so it doesn't feel as like fiddly. So that is my suggestion when learning or when making maybe your first little project, be it a scarf or something like that. I would start with fat yarn. I think that's just like a really good move. My second thing that I learned was to use stitch markers. It seems so silly. I'm like, why would I use these little stitch markers? It seems kind of fussy. Where do I even put them, right? Because I didn't even know like how to use them, and it seemed like one more thing to have to try to figure out. But oh my goodness, especially when you're learning, especially when you're learning to crochet and trying to figure out what stitch goes where and when are you at the end of a row. Having a stitch marker and using it correctly makes a world of difference. It also helps you from getting pieces that end up like going triangular or getting smaller, or especially with amigurumi, you're starting to work in the round. Those are like little stuffed animals. If you're working in the round and pretty soon you're like, wait a minute, what row am I on? What round, right? And so a stitch marker can help you figure out where to start, when to stop, and it makes things just so much easier. I'll show you how to use stitch markers. So stitch markers are honestly, they're just a must. right? Because that last one's gonna be my turning chain. And I'm just making this just to show you this is not gonna be a project. But when I turn in and put my hook into that spot, I'm gonna make my first single crochet. And as soon as I do that, before I do anything else, I'm gonna pull it up nice and big. I'm gonna put a stitch marker in that spot. So looking at it from the side top, this is the, right, so here's my stitch I just did. And here are the legs, I think they're called, it's the V. I'm gonna put my stitch marker under the V like this. Okay, can you see it? And then I'm gonna continue on my merry way. I should have 10, should be 10 stitches. So that was 1. Oops, I did about half double. I usually do a half double on my foundation chain. I'll do single for this. And it helps you count too. Like say you're like me and you totally forgot which one you're on. So I can look back and go, okay, that was number 1, 1, 2, 3, 4. And it should be 10. Let's double check. So I did a chain of 11, and that last one is my turning, right? So I have to start from the end because I know this is my first one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There it is. So, oh, and I usually actually have 2. Sorry, that was silly. I usually have 2 stitch markers, 1 for each side. So I'm going to do my chain 1 to turn. And then I'm going to do my next stitch. So if I'm doing a single crochet again, I'm going to do half double because that's always what I'm doing. I keep trying to do it. All right, so before I move on, I'm going to take my stitch marker and put it under the V. And again, you can pull at it, right, to see where it's at. Yarn is forgiving. And I turn back to normal and then continue my rows. That was 1. We're almost to the part we need. All right, so I'm coming up at number 10. Double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Aha, so number 10 is next. All right, so right here at the end, and here's my stitch marker, right? So I'm going to put my hook, I can put it right in that same spot where the stitch marker was. And there it is. That's my last stitch. So then I'm going to chain, turn it around, and I'm going to do another half double. All right, so but before I continue, there's my first stitch. So stitch marker, right? So there we are. Now I can continue on. I know where I started. I know where I ended, right? And every time I turn, I'll replace it when I move into that first stitch. And it makes, again, the bulky yarn, I mean, look at that. You can see every stitch, right? This is a wool. I think this is probably like one of the Lion brand, probably Woolies Thick and Quick is my guess, because guess who balled it up and didn't put her label on there when I was beginning. But anyway, I can see where I left off. So before I do that though, I'm using a Clover number 9. The brand doesn't matter, but Clover's my favorite. So you can do a couple things. They have you can like buy these super cutie patootie. Can you see that? Ones, right? They have this little light bulb thing on here. So you unclip it on dainty hands. Okay. Right. And you can put it right here if you want to. If you already have the stitch marker, just clip it to that. Right. I also, if you like a DIY kind of stuff, I bought some little embroidery tags, right? Like those little things. And I then got the Dollar Tree, I'm pretty sure. I got the plastic tags at Hobby Lobby, and then I bought these rub-on numbers, right? So I have all these. Oh, there's the 9. So what I can do is simply open up my stitch marker. I'm not going to take it out. I'll slide that on there and check it out. Especially when I'm getting old like me. Now I can see it's number 9. It's marked. It's all outstanding and ready to go, right? If you wanted to put it in the stitch you literally just made, like say you, for some reason, finished in the middle of a row, right? So let's try that. My stitch marker in there. So this is for my row. Say I wanted to stop in the middle just so I had like some done, right? We'll pretend that's what I'm doing. So let's do a couple more stitches to show you. So you could take another stitch marker, take your, right, this guy, put it through there, and you could literally just do that if that makes you happy. However, see, it's not going anywhere. So there is, right, my piece with my stitch marker and my number marker to let me know exactly what yarn size hook I was using. Speaking of keeping track of things, I have found that with each project, it is so important to have a little notebook, a little notepad, where you jot down the project, you jot down what size hook you're using, and where you left off. Because you'll probably think, oh, I'll remember I was at this one part with the thing. Nope, especially if you're like me, where you have about 5 or 6 whips going. I know, it's ridiculous. But anyway, that we can keep track of what you're working on, what you're using, and where you left off. You can write down the pattern, you could print off the pattern, you could even just write down like numbers to know what row you're on and cross them off as you go. If you're watching a video tutorial, write down the timestamp of where you left off. Anything to help you when you're going back to pick it up. You're not spending 10 minutes trying to figure out what row you're on or what stitch you need to use or what video timestamp that you need to be at. There are some tools that can help you with that, and that's which brings me to number 4. Number 4 is gadgets and accessories. Now, when I first started, I am someone who, if I get into a project, I kind of like dive in just 100%. This is the thing I'm going to be doing. And I learned a lot about what gadgets are helpful and which ones are not. Now, I think gadgets, depending on who you are and what is important to you, there's no like bad ones or good ones per se. Some people like things better than others. Like, for example, those like little rings, those tension rings, I think those are adorable, but they do not help me, right? What I will share with you though are some gadgets that super help me out. My favorite gadgets are these. I'm not going to talk about stitch markers. Those kind of go with like supplies, and I already talked about those. But things like this little guy, these little poppers to help me count my rows. This is my small one. I have a really big one with my big project bag that goes to like 100. But as I'm completing a row, if I'm not jotting it down in my notebook, or if I'm on the go and I forgot my notebook, I'll push a little bubble fidget thing for every row I complete, right? Because I will forget. And this is helpful because it's so tactile. Just like with the notebook, if I can cross it off, that makes me like keep track of it. Or if I can, punch the little tracker thing for the row that I'm on, it helps me immensely. Some other tools that I have found to be invaluable is the yarn winder. So basically, if you haven't used a yarn winder, it's where you can take your skein or your hank. Well, that's a whole other thing. To start off, just a ball winder where you can take your skein of yarn, put it in the tool, and it puts it into a nice little cake for you. What I love to do is have a big old bowl. I'll show you in a second. So I'll put my yarn. This is a huge bowl, but any bowl. I think that this was a probably an antique store or like a thrift store find, so like $1 or $2. I got this bowl, but it can be like a plastic bowl, anything. This helps me. You don't have to have a bowl, but when the yarn is rolling around as it gets wound up, I think that really helps. But this brings me to my next part. When you are using the winder, even if you're rolling by hand, whatever, this brings me to my next tip, number 5. don't throw away the label. Okay, so here's my ball winder. She's right here. So underneath on the floor, here's my giant bowl. What I'm gonna do is, I should zoom this out a little bit. Oh, I don't know if I can do that anymore. We'll figure it out. So I'm gonna take the label off. I'm not gonna throw it away because that would be ridiculous. And then I found that like, kind of like stomping it down, whoops, stomping it down a little bit seems to make it a little bit more friendly about being like pulled apart, right? So then you find the end of the skein. Sometimes it's tucked into the middle. Some have center pulls, which are really nice, but this one I just found it was kind of loosey-goosey. So I pop it in here and put this guy on the floor. All right, so, okay, so here we go. Let's make it bring it a little closer. Oh, just kidding, no I can't. Okay, that's where it is. So I take it and put it up through this little hole right here, right? And then there's this little spring guy. And then you put it through this little spot. And then another spring guy. It's like a little groove for everything. Then you put it in here, then you like start it off a little bit, like you hook it onto this little, it's like little slots to try to help you get, like to kind of anchor it a little bit. And then literally, oops, my lights are flickering. It's not showing using all this power. I have so many extension cords plugged in, you know, because I have some lighting and all that kind of stuff. So look at her go. Isn't that awesome? So it balls. Okay, so backstory. When I first started crocheting, I found winding the balls of yarn was really relaxing. Like I love to sit there and watch a show and just like ball up my yarn. It was really pretty. Plus I get to play with it, you know, and touch it. And I would toss the label because I don't need that anymore. Oh yes, you do. And then another tool that was kind of like a fancier one that maybe people are wondering if they should get this or not. Have you seen those boppy pillows? Like, right, they're like those donuts that come around you. Hold on, I'm gonna get mine. Okay, here she is. So this giant, it looks like, you know, like a nursing pillow almost. But what you do is you put it in your lap. I'm going to angle this down so you can see what I'm talking about. So you put it, looks like a life preserver, right? That's what my husband calls it. It looks like a life preserver. You got this boppy in here. And what it does is it puts your elbows like at a nice resting spot. And you can even put your work or your, you know, like put your instructions. And as you're working on something, pretend I'm working on this, right? It's all just right here. It's comfy, it's cozy. You can put your phone on that if you want to. But the reason why I love this is because when I started crocheting, I probably was getting so, I was so into it. Like I wanted to, every spare moment I wanted to crochet because it's amazing. But what I was finding was I was getting so much pain in my neck and in my shoulders and my elbows. Like I was seriously sore. Of course, I also was crocheting like every chance I had. So obviously overdoing it a little bit. But after I thought, you know what, I would put like pillows under me and blankets, and that helped. But this thing is like perfectly situated to have exactly the spacing, the elbows. I love it. Now, if you don't want to go out and get one of these, I think I didn't pay more than maybe like $35. I got it on Amazon. I'll look in my purchase history and see if I can find the link. Hold on, I gotta put this girl away. Here she goes. So if you are like, I don't want to invest in that, it seems kind of silly, I don't know if I would like it, you can just even take some pillows, right? Put some pillows so that your elbows are up higher, maybe put a couple in your lap, surround yourself with it and see how that feels. If you really like that, continue using the pillows and the blankets. But if you get tired of pillows falling or things rolling around, or where's my pillow that I loved for my right elbow, those boppy things, I love it. So maybe just try sampling, putting something under you, you know, some rolled blankets, some pillows, just see if you like that feel. And if it seems to help you, I would suggest getting that boppy pillow thing. It puts it into a super nice little cake, and when it's all done, I'm gonna take, whoops, when it's all done, I'm gonna take my label and tuck it into probably the center. I like it in the center because I feel like it's not gonna get lost there too badly. While it is kicking up your yarn, you can do other things. You don't have to sit there and like rotate it. There are hand ones that you can rotate to make your cake, but then your hands are busy. This way, my hands are free and I can pick up something I'm working on, like another granny square. I have one of them going, oh, here she is. I have a granny square that I'm working on, so I can let this ball up stuff while I do what I want to do. Oh, so much better. How cozy is this? Whee! And we're done. So I'm gonna take this guy, the label, and I wish it was here. Maybe I can turn it so you can see it. Okay, so see this right here? I'll kind of even make it a little bit, make this even a little tighter. Kind of plop it in here where this little metal section is, middle section I should say. And then I squish it, right, to give it some, keep it some of its elasticity. And then I pull a little bit from here so that way I can wind it around and tuck in. Right, so I wind it so I can tuck in. Trying to hold it so you can see it. So you can tuck in the end of that yarn so you know where it ended, right? And so I have my center. I can pull it from the center if I want to, or I can take it from the outside. But that's my ball winder. If you're smart enough to keep your yarn label, which hopefully you will now do from now on. And finally, this brings me to the last tip. Don't be afraid. When my sister taught me how to crochet, the first thing she said to me was, yarn is very forgiving. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, here, I'll show you. So we were working on some stuff and she's like, look, say you make a goof, say you don't like what you just stitched, just pull it, right? It just comes, right? It's just coming right out. Oh no, I have to redo a part. But look, the yarn's fine. This is still fine. Everything's fine. You can frog it. And if you don't know what frog it is, it means to pull out your work. And it sounds like rip it, right? So anyway, yarn is so forgiving. Don't worry about it, right? It'll come back. You can rework the yarn. You're totally fine. Don't stress out if you make a goof, because if you make a goof, just pull it back and then do it right. Choice things. This isn't a tip, because as you learn to crochet, you're gonna find this out on your own. But different yarns behave very differently. For example, this yarn, I love this yarn, it's really pretty. This is late fall. Okay, so I guess I have seven things I've learned as I've started my crochet journey. Seventh one, I guess, is gonna have to be choosing yarn. Now, this could be an entire video of like just choosing yarn and different fiber content, all the things. But I'm talking to you as a beginner if you're just getting into it. What I have found in my experience, and again, my experience is pretty limited. I've only been doing it for about a year, almost a year and a half. I would start with bulkier yarn and kind of on the budget friendly end, because when you are pulling out your yarn, say you're having to ribbit, right, frog your yarn, a simple acrylic is just probably should just like frog really easily. It comes out. If you do some fancy yarns like eyelash yarn or maybe chenille or some like the really fun fancy ones, but they're fun and fancy because they have a lot of texture or because the fiber content has a mohair in it or whatever. When you try to frog it, it might get caught on itself, right? Like it's really intricate, or it like will shed like crazy. So if you're learning like on chenille and you're having to constantly frog it, pretty soon little pieces might fall out depending on the yarn you get, and it might stress you out. So I suggest when you're choosing your yarn, when you're at the beginning, I know there's so many pretty yarns and you're gonna try out several that are not the, you know, simple basic budget ones maybe. I would suggest at least taking some budget friendly yarn. You could even go to the Dollar Tree and get some of the Premier, just I think it's basics or just worsted. But that's a perfect one to learn from because it frogs easily. You can see your stitches. The stitch definition is lovely, and it's budget friendly. So if you like goof and get a knot and you're not, you can start over, cut back a little bit, and it's not the end of the world. If you're just starting and using like a 28 or 30 plus dollar hank of hand dyed yarn, I feel that's risky, right? Because you're not quite sure what you're doing yet. Maybe you don't even know how. I would just practice stitching on some of the more budget-friendly, easier to access yarn, because I think that's just a good way to learn. That's just me. So that's my suggestion for that. I know that I still have a ton to learn about crochet. Just over the last 16 months or so, I have learned so much, and I continue to learn more every single time. Every single time I pick up a hook, I learn more things. So if you want to stay in the loop, be sure to subscribe to my channel. Thanks and have a good one.